Welcome to Healthcare Musings, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of critical care and healthcare in general. Here's your host, Dr. Hassaballa.
Hello, everyone. Happy to have you with me. So I want to present a case. You have a 35-year-old man. He falls off of a golf cart, hitting his head and suffering a traumatic brain injury. He comes in very obtunded. He has a little bit of bleeding in his brain. He has a skull fracture. He is so encephalopathic that he cannot maintain a patent airway, and so they place him on invasive mechanical ventilation. They intubate him in the ER. And he comes to the ICU. His brain injury progresses to get worse over the next several days. He cannot come off the ventilator for several days. He has a past medical history of diabetes, and he's hypertensive, and he has high lipids. He also has substance abuse history. And it is clear to the treatment team that he is not going to wake up anytime soon, and that he's likely going to need mechanical ventilation for weeks to months for him to recover. His parents are assigned his healthcare surrogate, and they tell the treatment team that he would not want to be on a ventilator long term. And they are adamant, and they know their son, and they're adamant that he would not want to be on a ventilator. And he would not want to have a tracheostomy in his neck, and he would not want to be fed through a tube. And they are really pushing to withdraw aggressive life support. Other members of the team, or other healthcare professionals taking care of him, note, now, this scenario is made up. Okay, this is not a real case. This scenario is made up. And just FYI, so that people know, this is not a real case. I just made this up. And I'm in the state of Illinois. Obviously, I'm practicing in the state of Illinois. And so in the state of Illinois, the Illinois Healthcare Surrogate Act specifically states that it allows surrogates to, if nobody assigns a healthcare power of attorney, okay, then it goes in order, and there's a specific order in the law of who becomes the healthcare surrogate. If it's not a guardian of the person, then the next is the parent, or the spouse, then child, then parent. So this patient does not have a spouse, this patient does not have a child, there's no guardian, so it defaults to the parent. The Healthcare Surrogate Act says if you're going to forego life-sustaining treatment, the patient has to have one of three conditions. One, it has to be a terminal condition that will likely cause death, whether or not you treat the patient, or he will have permanent unconsciousness, or an incurable condition, or an irreversible or incurable condition. It's very specific. Absent those three things, the healthcare surrogate can only withdraw life-sustaining treatment by a court order. And so other members of the healthcare team, of those taking care of him, not the healthcare team, other clinicians taking care of the patient point this out. And so now we're at an impasse, because we have on one side, you have family that is adamant that aggressive artificial life support is inconsistent with their values and preferences, and on the other side you have a state law that mandates a court order. And absent that, it seems by reading of the state law that this patient may be forced to undergo tracheostomy and feeding tube placement, because his traumatic brain injury may definitely recover. It could take months, but the recovery, according to his family, is not one he would want to take. The patient himself is unconscious and incapacitated, cannot talk about this. So what do we do in this scenario? And this scenario, I mean, it's made up, but it's based on multiple cases that have happened to me and my colleagues over the course of our careers. And now I'm closing in on 20 years practicing critical care medicine. So what do you do? Especially, and I think a lot of states have similar kinds of laws. And I kind of understand the point of the law because, for example, if you have a spouse who is the spouse of a patient, rather, who is, again, sick, incapacitated, cannot make decisions, does not have decisional capacity, but is not terminal, and that patient has a life insurance policy, the spouse can just say, oh, yeah, let him die, seeking the secondary gain of the life insurance policy, and the state law is seeking to protect patients like that. I get it. And it clashes, in my mind, fundamentally with the issue of patient autonomy. Because if you have a surrogate who is, who has a vested, like a parent, for example, has a vested interest in seeing their child live. If you have a parent telling me that they don't want this, how can I, in good conscience, seemingly force the patient to undergo something that he would not want? And I have no reason to doubt that the parent is correct. But they may be, right? They've misunderstood, or maybe they're estranged. Who knows? And what if you have another family member, another surrogate that comes and disputes this? Or maybe a patient has two children and the children are at odds. What do you do in that situation? And so the reason I bring this up is because it is of the utmost importance that every one of us do two things. Number one, get a living will. And number two, assign a healthcare power of attorney. The whole reason that the Illinois Healthcare Surrogate Act was or one of the reasons for the Healthcare Surrogate Act is to provide a decision maker for healthcare when a patient lacks decisional capacity. But it is an absence of a healthcare power of attorney. If someone designates someone else as healthcare power of attorney, then that person, can make decisions without having to go to court, and it doesn't fall under the Healthcare Surrogate Act, according to my understanding of the law. And I've consulted hospital attorneys for this as well, and members of ethics committees. So, this is in the state of Illinois, and I'm sure a lot of states have very similar types of laws. So if you don't have a healthcare power of attorney, then the Healthcare Surrogate Act applies and has very strict criteria for when you forego life-sustaining treatment, withdraw or forego life-sustaining treatment. And that means not resuscitating in case of cardiac arrest and allowing natural death. That means withdrawing aggressive artificial life support. And so, absence of a healthcare power of attorney and a living will, that this act applies. And so, technically, if this happens to you, you may end up getting aggressive artificial life support against your will because you failed to outline what your goals of care are. And you know what? None of us knows when this situation could happen. This fake case, maybe he got, I've seen cases like this where someone gets intoxicated, falls off a golf cart, and suffers traumatic brain injury. That could happen. Or you get into a car accident, or you get hit by a car, or you get hit by a golf, whatever. You never know. You never know. And so it is, if you have a living will, which is a document, it's called an advance directive, and it's a document that outlines what you want in case of the situation. If you have a condition where you lack decisional capacity, And then it tells them, the healthcare team and your family, what to do. Do you want to prolong my life no matter what? Or do you not want my life prolonged if the burden of treatment outweighs the benefit? And the language is pretty specific. It is so important that every single one of us does this. I have one when I did my estate plan, and I was very specific about what I don't want. And my wife has one too. And she is my healthcare power of attorney, and I am hers. Even if you are in your early 20s and healthy, you need to get a living will. And you don't need a lawyer. You can go to LegalZoom.com and come up and look at the template and get a healthcare power of attorney, fill it out, and get it notarized and witnessed. And you're done. And it's in effect. And the same thing, you name a healthcare power of attorney, there's a witness, it gets notarized, and you're done. And I'll put links to living wills and healthcare powers of attorney in the show notes. It's so important. It doesn't matter how if this situation doesn't apply for 100 years, that's fine. But it could apply in the next 100 minutes or even the next 100 seconds. It is so important that we tell people, tell our healthcare professionals, tell our doctors, tell our family what our goals of care are. And it should be done when we're healthy. Not we're in the middle of critical illness, and now we have the healthcare team asking, well, do you want me to do everything? Which is a whole other conversation of what we shouldn't say, and that might be a whole other podcast episode. I can't stress enough. This kind of situation comes up all the time. And if you're not careful and you're not clear over what you want, you may end up getting care that is inconsistent with your values and preferences. And so it is so important that we make our wishes known and then put it in writing. And assign someone to be our healthcare power of attorney who you know will honor your values and preferences. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your parent. It could be a friend. It could be your pastor. It could be your coach. It could be whatever. It doesn't matter. It's so important that we have these two advanced directives in place right now. Go do it right now. I can't stress how important this is. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And until next time, this is Dr. Hassaballa signing off on Healthcare Musings. Thank you for listening. To get every episode delivered directly to your inbox, please subscribe at healthcaremusings.com.